Okay, so my name is Charles Hughes. I'm with Debtmerica. I manage the partnership between World Financial Group and Debtmerica. I want to thank you all very much for coming on. I know it's a little bit of a late notice thing. A little quick tip for you if you're just starting to do a lot of Zoom meetings and webinars and such. If you're trying to get a lot of participation, do the invite the same day of the event. Don't do it 2, 3 weeks ahead. People will sign up all the time and then they won't show up. If we do a 1 day notice, then people sign up and we've got 35, 40 people online, which is fantastic. What I'd like to do is, before starting to talk about Debtmerica, for a quick second, we're going to address the poll that I had turned on. We just turned off a second ago. And I think I can click share results. I don't know what that does. So sharing polling results. The two questions that were asked is, do you think the credit card debt has gone up or down in the past 12 months? And everybody except for one said up. And the second question was, do you think that credit card delinquencies have gone up or down in the past 12 months? And everybody except for three said down. So a big applause to the person that said down on the first question, a big applause to the people that said down on the second question. And it's a really odd thing, because you would think that the way the world has been, obviously with COVID-19 this past year, that we would think the debt has skyrocketed. And that was our expectation too. I'm going to show you a couple slides real quick as soon as we start this, but we expected the same thing to happen. But if you think back over the past year, how many months was it that businesses were shut down? You know, there were shopping centers were, movie theaters were closed. As a matter of fact, my wife and I, we were supposed to go to Europe. That didn't happen. Think about how many trips to Europe or all over the country. Those trips didn't happen. The planes, it's funny, I look out my sky because we're in a flight path of the jets. We don't have planes flying by because there's so much fewer planes that are flying. So there was no money being spent. It wasn't that we were geniuses. It wasn't that we said, hey, let's all of a sudden get wise to this. It was simply the fact that there was no place to spend that money. The second thing I asked is as far as delinquencies. And it says, do you think that the delinquencies have gone up or down? And most people would think that they would have gone up. But in reality, they've stayed about the same, or they've gone down a little bit. The reason being that there was stimuluses that were introduced. There was money that was brought in artificially to the economy. And that money was going, and a lot of people used that to keep their credit cards active. And there was an odd reason why. And by the way, all this data is coming from the FTC. This is not just stuff that I've made up on my own. This data was really interesting because when it came to the delinquencies, the reason that people were keeping their credit cards open and active and yet not going up was because of a major concern. That was, what if something goes wrong? I don't want to max out my credit cards. I don't want to damage them, because if something goes wrong and I need something, somewhere to fall back, some sort of safety net, guess where they go? They go to the credit card companies. So this is why people have kept them intact. The sad thing is that we're now getting to a point where stores and everything are all back and open. Concerts in Southern California, there's a new concert venue that's got some things going on that it's kind of opening up in the next month. This means money is going out the door again. It means credit card balances are starting to creep up. It also means that delinquencies are going to start. So we're in kind of an interesting spot where we thought we would have been in April, May, and June of last year. We're actually seeing that upward trend now. So when World Financial Group talks about timing, when it talks about timing of the baby boomers that are retiring and the cash that's available and the IRA rollovers, all those things, you also have timing right now, because now is the time that people are going to be looking for a loan ahead. And so that's where we are. Let me go ahead and close that, get that out of the way. I don't know what download meant. Oops, that went somewhere. Okay, so let's share my screen. And that's the wrong page. So we'll get that over here. We're going to talk about Debtmerica because we talked a little bit about the debt in those questions that I just showed. And let me get that off my screen too, because that's in my way. Because we talked about that, I also want to take a look just at the numbers that we were at the end of March last year, because it's the same numbers now. American consumers, we were at $14.3 trillion in debt. It was an increase that had gone up in just a 5-year period. And it's been progressively growing. And it had gotten all the way up to the point where there was this upward trend every single year. It was going up a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. However, before 5 years ago, the debt had gone down significantly the 5 years prior. And that was because we had come off the recession. People were being cautious. They were stopping the purchases. They were being a lot more cautious with things. Delinquencies were down. It wasn't until about 5 years ago that that upward trend has started again. So this is all debt. We want to look specifically, however, at debt that's going to be related to clients when it comes to credit. We've got $1.3 trillion in credit card debt. That, if we spread it across the country, is about $16,000 per household. That, by the way, if you try to find minimum payments on credit cards, 3 to 4% is roughly a minimum payment on a card. So you're looking at about $500 per month going out to pay credit cards. And you have to understand that that represents almost 20% of a lot of people's income nowadays. That's a lot of money going out. That's before I've looked at putting money in for savings, for insurance, for emergency funds, for education, all those things that I should be looking for and doing things that are mandatory. Sorry about that. Got to turn off my phone. All these things that are mandatory that need to be done as far as making sure our families are secure, they're not being taken care of because the cash is just flowing out of the household before we even get a chance to do what we should. So that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at clients that want to be insured, but they can't. We want to look at also clients that are going through troubles and that they simply need that triage, they need help with credit, and we're going to cover that. And then offer them a tax relief, only because there's an old joke that says, you know, there's only two things in certain in life, which are death and taxes. We kid around, we say it's death and taxes. But we're going to look at two things. Well, let's talk first of all at some of the alternatives that people look at, because it's important to know when you're talking to a client, what are they going to say? They may say, you know what, thanks, I appreciate this, and I like that, Sarah, that settlement sounds like a good idea, but I think I'm just going to get a loan. I'm going to just consolidate all my bills. I'm going to call the bank, and then it's just going to get me a better interest rate. I'll have a shorter term. I'll be in a lot better situation. It'll be a lot easier. I'm working with the bank. Sounds like a great idea. It absolutely does. But the fact is, if you're facing hardship today, you've got problems right now, and you can't afford to pay your bills, then debt consolidation is not going to be a solution. It's just not there. You're not going to qualify. And that comes from my background as a lender. If you come to me with a low credit score or even a high credit score, but you've got a lot of debt, I'm going to turn you away. And especially right now, because it's become more and more cautious with regard to the lending on this end of things as far as consolidation debt. So that's the first. The second thing you might consider is credit counseling. So, well, you know what? I'm going to go to a nonprofit group. I'm going to see if I can find a nonprofit group because they're going to take care of me and they're going to help me. The thing that's wrong with credit counseling is it's really, really, really old, and it never made any modifications over its lifetime. Credit counseling started in 1951, 70 years ago. And back 70 years ago, credit cards and credit in general was still in its infancy stage. The creditors thought, you know what, if we're going to give somebody money to buy something, we want our money back very quickly. So they were requiring large minimum payments, 10% of their payment, of their balance. They wanted to have their credit cards paid in a year's time. If you stop making purchases in a year, you'd be paid off. And it was a very, very effective thing, but they realized the creditors weren't making a lot of money in this instance, but there were also people that were getting in trouble. Credit counseling was developed to help people in the 1950s. In the 1970s, in the mid 1970s, there was a genius in the credit world by the name of Andrew Carr. He's also kind of an evil man in some ways, if you look at it, because he came up with a great idea for the creditors and bad for us. He said, why don't we lower the minimum payments? Why don't we lower it down so all the client pays is just interest and barely anything else? And all the banks said, well, why would we want to do that? We're never going to get paid back. And the creditor and Andrew Carr said, exactly. If they never pay you back, all they'll ever do is pay you interest and interest and interest, and we'll make billions of dollars. And it was a great solution for them. It was a horrible solution for us. And it also broke the credit counseling systems. There's a 95% fail rate on credit and credit counseling. We'll look at it in a graph as well. But just so you know, the only reason that credit counseling is still alive is because it acts like a nonprofit collection agency. They work for the creditors, they don't work for you. That's the final thing. Is like, you know what? Thanks. I appreciate that offer. I'm going to file bankruptcy. I'm going to just file a Chapter 7, wipe out my debt. I don't have to worry anything. There's no stress. I call an attorney. I'll be done and I'll be out of debt in 90 days. Some people say right away, but you have to wait 90 days. The creditors want to make sure that they can't argue and fight that fact when you file. We're going to file Chapter 7, wipe out all my debt. Great idea. Perfect. If you are absolutely at the end of your rope, because if you're not at the end of your rope, you have two things to consider. One is it can affect employment, because you may possibly want to do something that involves licensing, specifically life insurance. You may be kept from going into an insurance industry or financial securities or working in the private sector for the federal government if you file bankruptcy, because they don't feel that you're a good risk for them. So they may block you. The other thing that occurs is that you've got a 100-point cap on your credit score, that in whatever your score is going to be, it's going to be dragged down by at least 100 points, and that'll last a decade. And why that really matters is you may file bankruptcy today and think, oh my gosh, I'm free and clear and everything is great and I'm in great shape. But in reality, you're not, because 3 or 4 years from now, when you're getting yourself back on your feet and you're ready to finance a house, that 100 points will potentially impact your credit, your interest rate by 1 or 2 or 3%, which means that even on a $500,000 loan, you're talking about somewhere between 150, 200, $300,000 extra in interest over the course of a 30-year loan. So do you really want to do that to simply wipe out $20,000 today? It doesn't make sense. So that's why we want to work with Debtmerica. Those are the three solutions most people look for. There's not much else out there. Debtmerica does three things always with every client that we look at. We always get clients out of debt fast. The goal is 2 to 4 years. 4 years is the outside term. It's going to be the longest payment the longest term we can go, the lowest payment we can get. 2 years is a little bit more aggressive. Payments tend to be a little bit higher, but people still like that idea of being completely out of debt. And frankly, 2 years will be about pretty much the same payment as they're paying to the creditors right now, but they'll be out of debt in 2 years instead of 25. The second thing is we're going to reduce the total debt. And that's going to be normally by about a third. We're going to look at graphs too, because some people think, okay, boxes aren't good enough. So we'll look at graphs too. But it's going to reduce the debt by about a third, which is great, because now we're going to go ahead and get into a better situation, kind of save a little bit of money, get ourselves in a better spot. But here's the most impactful. Debt free fast doesn't matter. If I'm sitting with you right now and talking about life insurance and you can't afford a premium, reducing your total debt doesn't matter if I'm talking to you about life insurance and you can't afford a premium, or you can't put money aside for family or for college or for savings because you can't afford that extra cash. I lower monthly payments most of the time by as much as half of what they're paying to start with. That is going to be why WFG and Debtmerica are tied, because our goal is to work specifically with that client that's going through cash flow. You've got a client that's got cash flow issues, and that's where we're going to come in. And we can do it very, very effectively and very quickly. We're going to look at a client as far as the next couple slides. We're going to use this somebody that's got about 30,000 in debt. And the reason being, the average person in debt that comes to Debtmerica, I said average household is about 16,000. The average debt for Debtmerica is going to be about 30,000. Mentioned also before, minimum payments, if you're ever trying to calculate, super easy. 3%, 4%, that's going to be the minimum payment. The higher that interest, by the way, the higher interest rates on the cards, that's the higher payment. So if I've got low interest rates, I've got 900 a month. If I've got higher interest rates, I've got 1,200. But as I said, Andrew Carr came up with that genius idea a few years back, and he said, let's lower those payments so we just trap the person in debt. They can't get out. You know, they've been making minimum payments. They can't afford anything more because they're tapped out, and they're going to be trapped for life. You all, if you're new to World Financial Group, you're going to probably learn about the rule of 72. If you don't know about it, talk to one of the agents that have been a little bit more senior. They'll kind of explain it to you. The rule of 72 for savings works for the rule of 72 for credit as well. Doubles the money. So you've got a 25, 26% interest. That money is growing so fast. So when we're making that $1,000 payment to the creditors, all we're trying to do is slow down that growth. And that's why it works so well for the creditors. I call a credit counselor and I said, look, I'm really going through some troubles. Do you have a solution for me? They're going to emphasize 2 points. They're going to say, yes, I can shorten your term, so it's going to be a lot faster. It'll be about 5 to 10 years. And secondly, I can save you a lot of interest. I'll save you probably about $50,000 over what you would normally pay. Remember, I said we're going to do 2 things. We're going to get you out of debt fast. We're going to lower your balances. But the third thing is I lower my payments. Credit counseling doesn't do that. Credit counseling payments stay the same. If they do anything, they go up. Success rate on that, because they don't do anything, they don't change. If I can't afford to pay $1,000 to the creditors, I sign up for another program that's going to get me out of debt faster, but I can't afford them, I'm going to fail. And 95% of clients do. When I look at a debt settlement program, we talk about it in just numbers, but 2 to 4 years, a third reduction, but that payment cut in half, that changes the game. And the reason it changes is because it frees up cash. So if I talk about life insurance and you say I can't afford it, the very, very, very least, we can look at a term policy. Possibly we can look at IUL, where we can go ahead and put a little extra cash aside. We may even be able to put some money aside for savings. But more importantly, is in a couple years' time, in 2 to 4 years, that green box, that now becomes freed up, and that cash now is in the client's hands as well. Make sure you get back with your clients on a regular basis, talk to them about their insurance. And when you're doing the insurance review, you're going to come to a day where that person's going to say, wow, my Debtmerica program is done. Now I've got an extra 500. Let's really look at that IUL you told me about a few years ago. So all around, this picture is really important. The process is relatively simple. I'm going to use that client from the last page. This person is going to stop making all payments to the creditors entirely. So nothing's going to go to Citibank or Chase or American Express. Everything stops. And instead, we're going to have that money start going into a savings account in the client's name. In fact, they're going to sign up for the agreement. And in the agreement, there's an application for bank account. The money that comes into our program doesn't even touch Debtmerica. It goes directly to the account, and there are no fees at all collected. So the cash builds really, really fast. That cash builds so fast that if you think 500 a month, 500, 1,000, 1,500, very, very quickly, we've got a lot of cash there. So what we can do is we come back and we say to a creditor, look, I've got someone who hasn't paid you for 3 months now. They haven't paid you, they owe you $3,000. But they have about 1,500 that they've saved up. They can't afford to keep up with minimum payments, but they do have that nest egg. They'll give you the nest egg. They'll give you 1,500 if we can call the 3,000 paid, and the creditor takes that every time. And I told you at the beginning, if you came on a little bit later, I told you at the beginning, I spent a lot of time working in the lending world, but I also worked as a collector. There is a statistic that is a very, very measurable metric in our business in the collections. That is, if you go 90 days past due, 90 days past due on a credit card, there is a likelihood that you will never give me any more money, not just for that card, but for anything else in our business dealings. In other words, if I have a bank account and I run for Bank of America and you are not making payments for 3 months, I'm probably never going to get another check from you. You call me up and you tell me you have half of what I owe, I'm taking in a heartbeat. And almost every creditor will take it in every instance. That settlement's done. And that is, by the way, when we collect our fee. We collect the fee after the settlement happens out of the next payment or two. We don't ask for extra money. If your payment's $500 a month, we get the settlement done. Next payment comes in, covers the settlement. Then we go ahead and start collecting cash. And then we're right back in the process. We're right back to going ahead and getting debt settled. Cash builds, settlement happens. Cash builds, settlement happens. 2 to 4 years from now. You call the term. In other words, 4 years is the longest and the lowest payment. But if it turns out, wow, I've been paying this for the past year and things are really getting easier because now I'm working with World Financial, I've got more cash coming in. So can I just go ahead and speed this process up? Absolutely. You have all of a sudden a windfall, you've got a big deal that comes in, whatever it may be. If you've got extra cash and you want to write the whole program and finish it all in one payment, that is completely fine. That's completely in your control. But if this screen looks too good to be true, it's not. And the reason it's not is because the next screen talks about some of the other things. Number one is if you don't pay your bills, we're going to wreck your credit scores. So you have to be aware. Go through the debt settlement program, your score is going to be compromised. Most people don't really show much hesitancy on this. The reason for it is that their credit score has been compromised anyway. They've missed a payment last month, or their credit is so high, their balances are so high that it's already affecting their credit score, where they can't afford to make payments anyway. So even with a great score, they understand that next month, the next month after that, they're going to start missing payments. So credit scores are not a big thing. The second thing is, and also again, not a big thing, is that there's a lot of phone calls involved. Creditors call up right away. And again, going back to my collections, pardon me, I just scooped my shoulder. Going back to collections again, is that if you went past due 15 days, your name was then put onto an auto dialer. You were allowed to be called 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday through Saturday, as many times as I wanted you on that auto dialer. There was one rule though, and it still stands today, and that is I could only talk to you once a day. So if you want to trick the system with regard to that auto dialer, you pick up the phone and say, I'm going through some troubles and I can't pay. I'll call you back when I can, and you hang up. That just reset that auto dialer, and you're not going to get a call for at least 2 days because I get fined if I call you too many times. It's called harassment. So that's going to be the big thing. Shuts down most of the calls in that instance. Better still is that there's only about 5% of households in the United States right now that have landlines. So anybody else, 95% of the country, can just screen out all the calls with a cell phone, and it makes it really easy. The last one I bring up is because it happens enough that we need to talk about it. And it's really scary and it's really intimidating. And that's why they do it, is that creditors can sue. If you don't pay me, if I haven't seen money coming in from you for a while, I am going to have the option to go ahead and send an attorney after you. And again, coming from the credit collection side and from Citibank, we were really cautious about this because we found the statistics show, again, that if we sue you, there's a good likelihood you're going to file bankruptcy. And so I really don't want that to happen because you owe me some money and I want to try to get back some of that money. And I know that if I sue you, then there's a good chance you're going to file. I don't want to do that for every client. I'm going to target specific people. And there's two groups that I look for especially. One is the person that has abused their cards very recently. They've gone on shopping sprees, bought a lot of furniture, a lot of things, gone on vacation, and then next month they ask for a settlement. The other person I'm going to be looking for is that one that just is just constantly doing cash advances on the cards. Now, there's a reason why I choose those two groups, and that is if you try to file bankruptcy and you went on a shopping spree last month, the bankruptcy attorney is going to say you can't file because the court will turn you down. They'll say, nope, this is new debt. You cannot file bankruptcy on this. If you've done a lot of cash advances, same thing. I can block that because you've done so many cash advances, I can stop the bankruptcy. So I'll go after about 3% of my clients. 97% of the clients are not like that. And that's what we're going to focus on, is just working with the ones that do. There's a plan B in place, though, for that 3%. The reason we sue, from a collector standpoint, the reason we sue is to scare the client. So the best way to prevent fear and stress and all anxiety is to not have the client talk to the creditor. In other words, we assign an attorney. So you don't have to worry about paying for representation. You don't have to worry about filing. You don't have to worry about talking to these horrible people in these lawyers' offices. None of that, because that's all handled by our attorney. And that really eliminates almost all the problems we have with the lawsuits. And it works out really well. Like I said, it happens 3% of the time, which is enough that we need to tell you, but it's not enough for me personally to worry. I will absolutely take that risk if I were a client. The other thing people ask about is cost of the program. There is a cost of the program. By the way, Erwin asked as to whether or not I can have a recording. Absolutely. Afterward, just make sure you get me an email. We'll be able to get there. When it comes to cost of the program, we have three things we want to be aware of. Number one, I said at the beginning, I don't charge fees up front. So your monthly payment goes in the program, cash builds really fast. Nothing's getting taken into that. It only comes when the settlement occurs. The second thing is to know is that when the settlement happens, the next payment or two is going to be where we're going to collect our fee. I don't say your payment's $500 a month for every single month except a settlement month, then you have to pay $700. That's not how it works. You'll never, ever, ever succeed that way. It's just $500 every single month or $250 every single month. When the settlement comes, the next month or two covers this payment and we're good. The other thing is people ask about fees, and we charge somewhere between 18 to 25%. Somebody always asks this, so I'm going to tell you straight, is that it's of the enrolled debt. Come to me with $30,000 in debt. If your fee is 20%, it's a $6,000 fee. Come to me with $50,000, your fee is 18%. The numbers get lower as the balances get higher. But if you take that percentage number and you spread it over the course of 4 years, now you're looking at normally a rate of somewhere between 4.5% to 6% per year, as opposed to creditors that are charging on an average of about 17 to 18% right now, and they can go up to about 35%. Underwriting, super simple, easiest page on the whole screen is 10,000 or more and bring the client to us. 10,000 or more, bring the client to us. It has to be unsecured debt. Unsecured versus secured, super easy thing to learn. Secured debt consists mostly of car loans and house loans. You don't pay a car loan, the lender can take it away from you. You don't pay a house loan, the lender can take it away. If you don't pay a credit card, they will not come back and ask for your laptop that you purchased 6 months ago. They will not ask you for, the pair of socks that you bought on Amazon 3 years ago. That's all safe. There's no leverage there. But if you don't pay the money on the car, they can. That's where that leverage piece comes in, and that's why we only work with unqualified debt. There's a list of things there that show the deficiency balance, the only one I normally have to explain. That's when a car is repossessed. They sell it at auction, whatever's left over after the auction, you still have to pay. Last thing, because we have a little bit more white space down at the bottom, we thought we'd throw one more in, and that is your student loan. Student loans can work provided they're private loans. If they're federal, we can't touch them. But if they're private loans, in very, very many cases, we can work with the student loans, and it's going to be fine. What's federal, what's private, what's business, what's secured, don't worry about any of it. Your goal is going to be just to get a client to us. And when you get that client to us, we'll go through everything. In fact, when I'm going to get to a page where I'm going to just give you the easiest way to present to us, my recommendation is you forget this whole presentation. Because if you go through this presentation with a client, you're going to scare folks off. It's way better not. And the last thing to talk about is going to be the IRS. The reason I bring up the IRS in a separate basis is because, first of all, they are a collection agency. In fact, a little bit like Disney. Disney has employees at Disney are cast members, as opposed to customer service people in Target. So when we're in the IRS, instead of a collection agent like you'd have in a credit card, you have a revenue officer. That is your top guy that goes through and does collections. And when you're working with the IRS and you're dealing with an RO or a revenue officer, those people have a lot of power. The list here is really scary. They can do penalties, they can do audits, but you know what? They can take 100% of your paycheck. They can also freeze your bank account if you don't talk to them. If I can't reach out to you, think about it. When you filled out your bank account application, one of the things you had to put in was your social security number. That means if you don't pay your taxes, I can log in and I can find your banking and I can go ahead and pull that by freezing your bank account. I can put property liens on so you can sell houses. Everything that you attach your social security to, I have access to. So I've got a lot of power as a revenue officer. The main key, the biggest takeaway on this, first of all, before we get on to anything, is that if you have someone or if it's yourself going through troubles with the IRS, talk to them. Okay. Don't hide, because they can find you easier than anyone there is, because they have access to every time that you tap into a system with the social security number. It's about being off the grid. It's never going to happen. They're always going to find you. So that's the first. The second thing is to understand that this is an entirely different system than Debtmerica. Optima Tax Relief's goal is one piece, and that is to solve your problem. It's a much broader statement than get out of debt fast, lower your payments, lower your bills. It is about solving your problem. And the reason that it's so broad is because one client may be eligible for what's called an offer in compromise. It's a drastic reduction in debt. The other person may not qualify for that at all. And yet we may provide invaluable services because that person wants to keep their business open and they're being faced with closure of their bank account or closure of their licensing, or they can shut down a corporate business account. So they're in danger of that. So we simply provide protection in some instances. Sometimes it's about filing back taxes or dealing with audits, and we're going to cover that in a second. But the way we work is twofold process. And what's unique in the industry, I'll tell you why it's unique in a minute. What we do is we want to know what's going on with the client. So the first thing we do is we charge a client $495 upfront. I told you Debtmerica, no fees upfront. Optima, $495. It's not very much. That $495 allows us to file a power of attorney with the IRS. And when I talk about the IRS, by the way, IRS, the Franchise Tax Board, doesn't matter. If it's, I've got a client just enrolled just recently. She's got $245,000 in employment taxes. So there's a variety of things that we can be looking at. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to reach out, contact whatever the tax board is that you're dealing with. We're going to submit a power of attorney in order for us to go ahead and find out what's going on. And then we're going to ask for a little bit of time. That $495 normally buys us about a month and a half, sometimes 2 months. We want to know everything about the client. How much money do they make? How much do they have in savings? What kind of assets do they have? Do they have houses? Do they have rental property? All those things are going to be collected up. We're going to round it all up and then come to the table and say, okay, Mr. Client, this is what we can do to solve your problem. And that's going to be phase two, which is going to be the resolution process. Now, there are a variety of things that are on the bullet points here. Non-collectible status means somebody can't afford to pay anything. We're going to prove that. We may have somebody that just has some penalties. We can get rid of some of the penalties. Somebody's getting audited. We can go back and refile or ask for a representation on an audit reconsideration. But when it comes to an offering compromise, the one thing we just all have to be aware of is it's not an easy thing to achieve. In fact, this is where it makes us the biggest difference between us and every other company out there is that most companies charge up front. They charge a big fee, $6,000 or $7,000. I mentioned we charge $495. They charge 6 or 7,000 and they promise every client to get an offer and compromise. And then afterward, they come back to a tremendous amount of these clients and they say, you know, we tried, but we couldn't get the offer, but we already did a payment plan, so we can't give you back that $7,000 or $8,000. We thought that was atrocious. How can I tell you it's going to be an offer unless I know everything about you ahead of time? So we charge $495 up front. And then this list, this resolution is based on the complexity of the case. The harder the case is, the more complex it is, the longer it's going to take, the more expensive it's going to be. So you may be looking at a client that may only get charged $1,000. The other companies are all charging a flat $7,000 or $8,000. You may get somebody that gets charged $1,000. You may also get somebody that gets charged $20,000 or $25,000 or $30,000. I want to give you one perspective that was a wake-up call for me because I've been doing this for a long time. I've presented this product for a long time, but this was a wake-up call that just recently happened. I have a person that's got $1.2 million in back taxes. And I was just told by the tax consultant that was working with the file. The file came from me through a referral through WFG. And the person told me, we're going to charge that client $35,000. And I said, wow, that's going to be great. So we're going to probably get rid of most of this 1.2 million. And I was told, no, we're probably not going to pay any of that. In fact, everything is going to have to be paid. All full 1.2 million is going to have to be paid off. And I was pretty concerned because I was going to say, well, I have to talk to this agent and this client is paying $35,000 in fees and he's not saving any money. So where's the benefit to it? And that was where my lesson was. And it's what probably the biggest thing I can give you to Optima is that it was explained to me, if this person goes the direction he's going, there is a revenue officer that is going to freeze his bank account. They are going to take away their insurance licenses because it's an insurance industry. They are going to shut down their corporate license and they're going to freeze all assets. They're going to completely put this person out of business. So yes, we will not save money for this person, but we will absolutely save their business. And that's the big difference. So that's why you want to work with a company that knows what's going on up front rather than backside. So that's Optima Tax. Underwriting on this side, super easy. It's going to be at least $10,000 in taxes. There's absolutely no exception to that. It has to be at least that much money. Unfiled returns, wage garnishments, levies, liens, no taxes, back taxes. It doesn't matter. Just bring the client out. We're going to go ahead and take a look at everything. Okay. The main thing on this and the main thing on Debtmerica is don't sweat the details. We're up to page 16. When we get to page 19, I don't know, somewhere I lost 3 pages. It's like the Bermuda Triangle. I just noticed that. We're now on a page where I'm going to tell you everything we just learned was just for your knowledge, not for you to talk to your client about. There is an EVC or an SEVC that told me when curiosity is up, then skepticism is down. And it's probably the most important thing you can have when it comes to Debtmerica. Don't get people to know too much before we get a chance to talk to them because they'll be skeptical. You tell somebody, well, I'm going to have you talk to Debtmerica and Debtmerica is going to go ahead and cut your balances, but it's going to have a lot of phone calls. It's going to hurt your credit. You could possibly get sued. You've got this, don't bother with all that detail. Just get the client to us and let us have an opportunity to talk to them. And we're going to go ahead and bring this to them. And what I'm going to say is this, if I talk to a client that's got cash flow, I've got a partner that's going to be able to help you with this. They're going to get you through the troubles really quickly. And I'm going to have them give you a call and explain how the whole program works. I am not going to go into any details. If you want to ask me, well, I heard those things hurt your credit score. You know what? Talk to Debtmerica when they call you out. They're super, super easygoing. If it doesn't work for you, if you don't want to move forward, that's totally fine. But really talk to them first. Same thing with an Optima. Well, what about taxes? I heard about offers and this and that. You know what? Talk to Optima because I've got someone who might be able to help you. They're going to get you through the troubles really quickly. And I'm going to have them give you a call, explain how the program works. It's that easy. Now, I posted once before at the very beginning. I'm going to post again just because there were some people that come on afterward. So I'm going to post that same thing that says consider posting that to social media. Posted that again because there was a lot of response on this. There's a lot of folks. Now our number's gone up quite a bit. So now we're at 50. So 50 would be 35,000. So 17,500 people will potentially see that message. And Dorothy, by the way, I see your hand raised. Don't worry about it. I promise if you put in a question or anything, we'll go ahead and get back to you in a little bit. So I want to let you know. So we're talking about 17,500 people that are going to see this message if you put that out right now. And you'd be surprised how many people will come back. If they don't come back, guess what? It was one Facebook post. I never post on Facebook, so it's no big deal. It could be an Instagram account. It can be a text account. It can be whatever you want to do. Just post it and see what happens. And if I'm wrong, you're welcome to call me up and say, Charles, you wasted all my time because I put that one post out onto Facebook and I could have, I don't know, drank a sip off my cup of coffee before and you wasted time. And I'll apologize for you personally. But if they don't, the other alternative is they're going to come back to you. They're going to ask for questions. They're going to go ahead and start talking to you about a solution. To get to us, most of you, and so far I got 2 likes for Hope Lopez. Hope, thank you so much. You're awesome. So you've already got 2 people that have responded back. What I would do is just send them a DM, or I think it's DM or IM, I don't know. It's send them a message or email. I don't know, pick up the phone, call, whatever. But give them a call, find out what happens. You'd be surprised. So WFG.Debtmerica, this is the main thing. First of all, if you have already registered with us and you're already on site, you would have gotten the invite to this meeting tonight. So just so you know, if you got the invite from me, directly from me or through MailChimp, then you will have already been registered with us. If you didn't, if you're a brand new agent and one of your SMDs or one of your leaders sent this over to you, you're probably not registered. I'm going to take a quick glance at the page because some people have registered and then they don't really touch it. We click on WFG.Debtmerica. It's not my WFG. It causes a lot of confusion because we have our own outside source. We get out to the site and there's a don't have an account, click there. It goes 2 seconds, gets through. By the way, there is one part of World Financial Group and it's under Elon Michael. Anyone that works with Elon Michael, you have to be aware of one thing, is that they have a different website. It's not WFG. It's ILN.Debtmerica. Or you can go to teamiln.com and you'll get there. If you're not with ILN, you're not working with Elon Michael, don't worry that I said that. It just tries to unravel some confusion before we see. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to log in. And the only reason I want to log in is to take a quick glance at it. You'll see it keeps track of all the referrals I've submitted on the side. I've also, as I registered, I made sure that I put in my EVC and I listed him. And I also listed my SMD. Of course, I got some celebrities that are kind of passed away, but they still have their agent codes apparently. So you've got that. You've got the setup all system in here. And then if I want to refer a client, I go ahead and I click on add a new referral. And there's going to be a debt or a tax client option. And I have to pick debt or tax. Do not ever go to WFG.OptimaTax because there's no such thing. Okay? And they don't pay referrals. We do it through everything goes through the Debtmerica channel. So pick Debtmerica or tax. And once we pick that, you'll get an option to pick a preferred consultant. If you have somebody you like to work with, or if somebody on your team says, oh my gosh, you have to work with this person, then by all means work with them. If you don't have somebody, I'd say leave it blank, let it get assigned randomly, it'd be perfect. Go through, fill out the client's information, and then just know also down at the bottom that says, is there a split agent? And if you want to assign them, and you know what, I'm going to just go ahead and we're going to take Hope Lopez and we're going to see if Hope is registered. So I'm going to say, is there a split agent? I say yes. And we're going to type in Hope Lopez, and there she is, and she's registered and she has her W-9 and everything's on file. If I click on that, now I'll be able to split 50-50. It doesn't matter hierarchy to hierarchy. 2 different groups, totally fine. It just doesn't matter because we just split and we do it on through the Debtmerica side. Okay. If you did not have a W-9 on file, or if you had something, you would not be able to assign that person. Okay. Once that's done and submitted, we take care of everything from there. You get updates, and then you're also going to be able to watch this list, and you'll see on the side. And by the way, it's not that I'm a terrible agent. It's just that these are all test files. But when the person moves forward or doesn't move forward, it gives you the update and tells you if they're inactive, or tells you if they're active, or tells you if they've enrolled. It tells you the start date, which is where your commission is due as well. There are some things on the side too. There's a training and marketing resources that gives you a marketing brochure. It gives you an agent brochure, and it also gives you a horrible recording. And if you ask for me for a recording afterward, in other words, if you click on this send an email over the left-hand side, or you're going to see my email in about 2 seconds or 30 seconds. If you see my email, drop me an email, say, can I get a recording of the message? I'll get that out to you afterward. So final, get back to pay, because we of course need to pay you for referrals. It's super, super simple. If you have a client that has $10,000 to $25,000 in debt, you get paid $250. Always the same number, 10,000 to 250. Once it goes over 25,000, once it goes over 25,000, it's a flat 1%. So client's got 50,000, you get 500, or 30,000 is 300, really straightforward. Average client's got 30,000, so you see an average payment of about 300. It goes directly to you. 100% of that check goes to you. Nothing goes to your leaders. Nothing goes to WFG. You get 100%. And here's the thing that you should know too, is if you get a check from us, feel free to spend it all if you want, because I will never, ever, ever, ever ask you for that money back. If the client changes their mind, they get refunds. It doesn't matter. We take all risk. And so you don't have to worry about any chargebacks like that. That's on the debt side. And then tax, because I charge a client twice, charge them $495 up front, you get paid half. They go ahead and they move forward to the second process. Whatever the liability is, we pay out 1%. So that's super simple as well. I'm going to leave this on. There's a couple questions that I've already seen that are on my screen. So I'm going to look at the questions first of all, and then I'm going to flip over to a contact screen. He said, if you want a copy of the recording, go ahead. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go into the chat window real quick, and I'm going to put in my email address. Hopefully I spelled it right. Okay. So that's my email address. It's in the chat. You'll also see it on the page, but you can also, while you're on that page on the WFG.Debtmerica, on the left side, click on that email. That comes straight to me, plus a couple of my partners. Okay, so let's look. There's a Q&A section, and the Q&A came from Tej Singh. It's a great presentation. May I please be sent the recording at that address? Okay, so Tej, what I'm going to ask you again is just make sure that you send me that email, because I'm never going to catch this on this. And thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words on that. But like I said, just click on that link off of the website, or wait for the next screen. I'm going to go ahead and click that onto the next page. The CQs at Debtmerica or training at Debtmerica, it's all going to come to me. So that's going to be able to get that information to you. It's perfect. Kari Saito, same thing. Please just go ahead and just type the email to there. Don't put it in the message, because I won't get that. So grab my email address, send me an email, and we're going to be perfect. I'm going to run through the notes real quick, because there were some questions. The first one is Erwin. And by the way, Erwin, it's great to see your name pop up, man. I haven't seen you forever. I think it's been like about a year and a half since we went to your office. Love to go out and see it again. If you want to do a training in your office, by the way, please let me know. And if anybody on the recording says, wow, this would be something I wish my whole team could see, get out with your leader and just say, hey, can we get a training for Debtmerica? I will set up an individual training for your office, and we'll go through exactly this, but we open it up for Q&A, and we can go ahead and have conversations afterward, and everybody gets to see their pretty faces on the screen. You don't have to just look at mine. So you've got that. Is the recording, and then you've got try this social media, and you got, and you know what, Hope, again, I'm super stoked to see that you got those likes, which is awesome. I'm super happy to hear that. Vivian, I don't know what sweet means, except it means that she's excited, whatever that means. That's great. Then there's a couple of people that gave me emails. Thank you very much, Tej. I appreciate that. And Paul, it's good to see your name as well. And no, I have not been to your office, and I would love to see that. Touch base with me offline if you don't mind, or drop me an email. I'll do that. Is it fine to select your name as Charles to assist our referrals? Vivian, thank you for asking. I don't think you'll even find my name in the system. I don't work with clients directly. If it's at 11 o'clock at night and you're sitting down with a client, you're doing a KTP, and you got a quick question you want to ask, you can call my number. If my phone's turned on, I'll take the call. If it's turned off, I'm not working. If you want to send me a text or an email, perfect. Voicemail, I'm terrible at, okay? But I will always, always, always then hand you off to one of my sales team, because they're the ones that are going to be working with the clients one-on-one. I love dealing with you guys as agents. I truly, truly do. But my bandwidth just doesn't open it up. And you would hate me as a sales agent, because I never get back to your clients, because I'm all hanging out and answering your questions. So Eleanor said, thanks for the presentation. Are there certain states that Debtmerica is not licensed to operate in? Because I'm from North Dakota. And you know what? I'm not sure about North Dakota. So I'm going to do something that I never let my team do. And that is, I'm going to go ahead and put this up for a quick second. And we're going to go ahead and put a good state, bad state list up. You're going to see it for just a couple seconds, okay? And because the reason, first of all, I don't like to show this. In North Dakota, I'm afraid, oops, where'd that go? North Dakota, I'm afraid, Eleanor, it doesn't look like we're in North Dakota right now, but you will see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different states here that are on this red list that we're opening up. And the reason being is that the politics involved in debt settlement has changed drastically in the past year. past 2 years actually, and more states are becoming willing to work with debt settlement. They're realizing the value. These states were really, really concerned. There's nothing I can do with those states right now. However, the states that you'll see, I'd say if you're going to do a screen print on this, and I'm going to take it off in about 2 seconds, if you're going to do a screen print, just understand that just because you're not there today doesn't mean it won't be there next week. So you have to call in, have to check. The other thing is that there are some people, Eleanor, specifically, that are going through issues, but also have two residents. So in other words, I may have a house in North Dakota. I'm not even going to do, I was going to say, South Dakota, I don't know. Nope, South Dakota, North Dakota, both of that. So whatever a neighboring state is that's good, maybe I've got a house there. And so does that mean I'm going to get licensed here? I can still refer? Yes, absolutely. So Eleanor is asking, does that mean that I'm going to get licensed in North Dakota? You can still refer to people from other states. It doesn't matter, number one, where you are. It all matters where your client is. That's the first thing. And number two, Eleanor, this is really important. And for everybody on call right now, everybody understand that you do not have to be licensed at all with Debtmerica. Okay, I'm going to go back to my contact screen because I want to just have that at the end. So you do not have to be licensed in order to offer Debtmerica. If you just signed up with World Financial Group last week, you can start referring immediately. So you've got your client set up, you've got them saving money. By the time you get through the licensing process, now you've got that client all set and you're ready to go. And Eleanor forgot, and so that's awesome. So, perfect. It looks like we've covered most of the questions, all of the questions. How many states can Debtmerica be? I believe that I lose the count periodically, but I think we're right now at about 38. And again, it's a little bit about politics. Actually, it's all about politics. And frankly, it's about politics, and it's about the way that the debt settlement industry started back 14 years ago. We opened up and we work in conjunction with a company called Freedom Debt Relief. It's the largest debt settlement company in the country. They pretty much do all business for every company. Almost everything routes through Freedom. But there were some really, really ugly people at one point, and they were taking advantage of clients, and they used to charge fees up front, and then they would just close their doors and open up under a different name. So there were some states that were really, really upset about that, and they just shut down and said nothing to do with debt settlement. And they think that that's never changed. Those states that were on that red list, those are states that predominantly still don't realize that the FTC came in 2010 and said, look, you guys got to play nice. And they gave us rules and regulations. And one says, I can't charge a fee to a client unless we settle the debt. And once that happened, by the way, all the ugly guys, they all left. By the way, they all went into the mortgage, the mortgage loan modification industry. And then when that started becoming regulated, believe it or not, they went into tax resolution. And so those people that were doing those ugly things for debt settlement, then loan modification, those are the ones that we really don't care for in the tax world because they're taking advantage of clients. That's why we work directly with the IRS commissioner, and we work in coordination with them to make sure that what we do is the most streamlined, most effective way that we go ahead. Look, we've been partnering with you all for a long while. It's been a phenomenal ride. It really has. There is not another settlement company in the country that works with your company across the country. There are some one-offs here and there, but for the most part, we are the only firm that is recognized across the country. And the main reason for that is because we realize that your clients are your clients. We're not taking these people as just leads off the street. We want to treat them with 100% respect. We know that they're brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts and family members. And so we're going to treat them in a way that's not going to happen with any other settlement company in the country. We've gotten really, really good at this over the years. I was the first to start realizing how important it was to maintain those relationships. I brought that into the culture and started working a little bit more with the rest of the team. And that's exactly how every single agent comes in now. They are trained to be wholesalers. They're not trained to be retail sales agents. And that's been a game changer. For this evening, I want to tell you what you do in this industry in general, as far as the insurance world. It's a noble, noble cause. It truly is. If you've never been impacted directly with life insurance, I'll tell you, it absolutely will change your world. Our company has had a few people that have passed away in the time that I've been there. Sadly, some of them have been tragic, and sadly, some of them haven't had life insurance. And I've watched the aftermath. It's just devastating. I've also been directly impacted because my father passed when I was 17. We got 5 kids in the family, and my youngest is disabled. My youngest brother is disabled. If we didn't have life insurance in place, I don't know what my mom would have done, and I don't know what my brother would have done. And it's a big thing for you for what it comes to the world. Insurance is no longer provided in any type of scale that's required in in the workplace. It used to be group insurance was fine, but it's really not. It's you on the front line bringing this in the education and the things that you do on a daily basis. That is absolutely worth every single bit of effort that you've got. And I want to wish you the very, very best and success as you go through. And also tell you if there's ever a time that I can help you, reach out to me, touch base directly. I'd love to go ahead and see what we can do to help out. I'll wish you God bless and have a fantastic night.